I still remember the first time we encountered them. The humans, I mean, back then we thought victory was inevitable. My name is Vrek'tal and I served as a tattoo analyst for the Korthian Empire's 5th Assault Fleet. We had conquered 47 systems in 3 cycles. We were unstoppable, or so we believed. The human colony on Epsilon Ridge was supposed to be easy. Intelligence reports said 2,000 settlers, minimal defenses, outdated kinetic weapons. We sent in the Hammer Division, 12,000 elite soldiers with plasma rifles and atmospheric superiority. Should have taken 4 hours. Tops. It took 6 weeks, and we lost. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, when everything still made sense. The briefing room aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion smelled like recycled air and overconfidence. Commander Vrek'tal stood at the holographic display, his 4 eyes gleaming with anticipation. Behind him, the 3-dimensional projection of Epsilon Ridge rotated slowly, showing a cluster of prefabricated habitats nestled in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. Simple extraction operation, Vrek'tal announced, his voice carrying that particular tone of boredom reserved for missions beneath our dignity. Minimal resistance expected. Standard protocol. Level the military installations, process the civilians for labor reassignment, strip the mineral deposits. Questions? I raised one of my manipulation appendages. Sir, what about the reports of human tactical unpredictability? Vrek'tal's eyes narrowed. All 4 of them. It was not a pleasant sight. That is propaganda, Vrek'tal. Psychological warfare. They want us to think they are dangerous. In reality, they are primitives playing with fusion reactors. Dismissed. The dropships descended through Epsilon Ridge's atmosphere at dawn. Beautiful planet, actually. Twin suns just breaking the horizon, casting purple and gold light across forests that looked almost like the sacred groves of our homeworld. Shame we were about to ruin it. I watched from orbit, monitoring tactical feeds from 7 different battalion commanders. Everything proceeded according to plan. The humans had detected our approach naturally. They had satellites, basic sensor arrays, nothing sophisticated. Their defense force, such as it was, had mobilized to the southern perimeter. Contact in 30 seconds, reported Battalion Commander Vrek'tal, detecting approximately 200 human combatants. Armed with weight, are those chemical propellant weapons? Actual bullets? Laughter echoed across the command channel. Bullets, against plasma rifles and powered armor. This was going to be over before breakfast. Then Vrek'tal screamed. The sound cut off abruptly, replaced by static. Then another commander. And another. 7 tactical feeds went dark in the span of 15 seconds. The holographic display erupted in red warning indicators. What is happening? Vrek'tal demanded, his calm demeanor evaporating. Get me visual confirmation now. The main screen flickered, showing the helmet camera feed from Sergeant Klex. Through the smoke and chaos, I saw things that made no tactical sense. Humans running directly at our positions, drawing fire, then diving into cover that should not have protected them. Buildings exploding from the inside. Soldiers appearing from underground tunnels we had no intelligence on. And everywhere, those primitive chemical weapons. They are not retreating. Police gasped over the comm. Sir, they are not retreating. We are pushing them back and they keep coming. They keep. Wait. Movement above, multiple hostiles on the rooftops. How did they get? No. Static. I felt something cold settle in my thorax. This was wrong. Species do not behave this way. When faced with overwhelming force, the rational response is surrender or withdrawal. Not this. Not whatever this was. All units. Full tactical bombardment. Vrek'tal ordered. Level Sector 7. The orbital guns spoke. Spears of coherent light that could melt through 6 meters of reinforced concrete. We watched the targeted area turn to glass and fire, 3 city blocks gone. Surely that would break their spirit. For exactly 12 minutes we received no resistance from Sector 7. Then the attacks resumed. From Sector 7. Through the smoke and residual heat signatures, human soldiers emerged. Somehow alive, somehow still fighting. They had been in bunkers, tunnels, beneath the buildings we thought we had destroyed. Impossible, Vrek'tal whispered. Biological organisms cannot survive that heat. Sir, I said carefully, reviewing the data streaming across my console. I think they were not in the blast zone when the bombardment hit. They evacuated and circled back after. In 12 minutes? Through that terrain? I had no answer that made sense. Humans moved faster than our intelligence suggested. They adapted faster. They seemed to know what we were going to do before we did it. The first day cost us 2,000 soldiers. The second day 3,000 more. By the end of the first week, the Hammer Division had been reduced to 6,000 combat-effective troops, and we still had not secured the colony. Zalax kept requesting reinforcements. High Command kept sending them. The humans kept killing them. I started studying the humans specifically, pulling every piece of intelligence we had. Most of it was useless, focused on technological assessments and resource surveys. But buried in the anthropological files, I found something interesting. A human concept called stubborn. According to the files, when a human decides something matters, they will pursue it beyond all reasonable limits. They will ignore pain, exhaustion, overwhelming odds. They will continue when every rational calculation says stop. The files called it a flaw in their survival instincts. I was starting to think it was something else entirely. On day 9, we captured our first human prisoner. His name was Cooper, a civilian engineer conscripted into the Defense Force 3 days before our arrival. He had been shooting at our troops with a rifle older than our intelligence estimates of human spaceflight capability. He should have been terrified. He was smiling. "You are losing," Cooper said in surprisingly good Korthian. "Apparently humans were better at languages than we thought too. You just do not know it yet." Zalax struck him. Cooper's head snapped back, blood streaming from his broken nose. He laughed. 16,000 of you now," Cooper continued, spitting blood. "We started with 200 combat-trained personnel and maybe 1,000 civilians who knew which end of a gun to point at you. You have orbital superiority, plasma weapons, powered armor, and you still have not taken my home. How does that feel?" "You are delusional," Zalax said. "We will crush you. Sure. Eventually, maybe. But how many more of your soldiers die first? 1,000? 10,000. We have had 3 weeks to prepare since you took the outer colonies. We have had 3 weeks to dig tunnels, stockpile weapons, train everyone from farmers to school teachers in basic combat. And every day you stay here, every day you pour more troops into this meat grinder, you are not conquering the 50 other human colonies in this sector. Tell me, Commander, what do you think they are doing right now? Do you think they are sitting around waiting for you to show up? Or do you think they are preparing to make you bleed even worse than we have?" Zalax killed him, snapped his neck right there in the interrogation chamber. I did not blame him. Cooper's words had struck something deep, something we did not want to acknowledge. The human was right. This single colony was tying down an entire assault fleet. If the others had prepared similarly, I ran the calculations that night. Based on current attrition rates, projected human defensive improvements, and the number of colonies in human-controlled space, the numbers were impossible. We could not win. Not the way not against an enemy that refused to acknowledge when they were beaten. On day 15, the humans launched their first major counteroffensive. They had been building explosives in the civilian sections, areas we had assumed were non-threatening. Civilian targets, beneath our notice. The detonations collapsed 6 blocks of terrain, taking 4,000 Korthian soldiers with it. Then the humans poured out of their tunnels and bunkers, not to retreat, but to attack. They attacked. They had no air support, no armor, no plasma weapons. They had chemical propellant rifles, improvised explosives, and sheer bloody-minded determination. And they pushed us back. I watched one human, a woman named Kelly, walk directly into plasma fire to pull a wounded comrade to safety. She should have died. The math said she would die. She took 3 plasma bolts to her torso, kept moving, got her friend behind cover, then picked up a rifle and started shooting back. She fought for another 7 minutes before finally collapsing. 7 minutes. We had species-specific medical data that said humans expired from plasma wounds in 90 seconds maximum. Kelly fought for 7 minutes with injuries that should have killed her 3 times over. "Sir," I said to Zalax, "I strongly recommend immediate withdrawal and tactical reassessment." "Absolutely not. We do not retreat from primitives." "With respect, Commander, they are not primitive. They are terrifying." Zalax did not respond. He was staring at the tactical display, watching our positions contract, watching the casualty reports climb, watching everything we thought we knew about warfare get shredded by an enemy that should not be able to fight back this effectively. On day 21, High Command made the decision for us. Orbital bombardment, full planetary sterilization protocol. They were going to burn Epsilon Ridge to bedrock rather than admit we could not take it. I thought that would be the end. A waste, certainly. A failure. But at least it would be over. The bombardment was scheduled for 0600 hours. At 0500, every single human defensive position simultaneously went dark. No communications, no movement, no energy signatures. We thought they had detected the impending bombardment and evacuated to bunkers. At 0530, the humans activated something in orbit, a satellite we had not detected, somehow hidden in the debris field from an earlier battle. It was broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously, a message from the colony's governor, a woman named Davis. To the Korthian Empire, she said, her voice calm, almost friendly. You came to our home, you tried to kill us. You tried to enslave us. You tried to take everything we built. We said no, we are still saying no. And here is what you need to understand about humanity. We are stubborn, we are resourceful, and we absolutely positively refuse to die when you tell us to. See you on the next colony. We will be ready. Then the satellite exploded, took out one of our orbital guns in the process. Some kind of disguised missile platform. The bombardment proceeded as planned. Epsilon Ridge. Burned. Atmospheric readings confirmed no life signs larger than bacteria. Total sterilization achieved. Mission accomplished. Except it was not. The humans had evacuated. All of them. 2,000 civilians and whatever remained of their defense force somehow transported off-world in less than 30 minutes using ships we had not detected and infrastructure we did not know existed. They escaped. They won. Not by defeating us militarily, but by surviving long enough to escape and leave us with nothing but a dead rock and 10,000 casualties to explain to High Command. Word spread. By the time we reached the next human colony, they had prepared. They had built better bunkers, better weapons, better tactics. They had evacuated their non-combatants weeks in advance and left behind nothing but volunteers willing to make us pay for every meter of ground. The war stopped being about conquest. It became about attrition. Every human colony cost us thousands of soldiers, tens of thousands. They adapted to our tactics faster than we could develop new ones. They shared information, coordinated across light years, turned every battle into a lesson that made the next one harder, and they kept refusing to die. I remember the Battle of New Saigon, the Battle of Port Victory, the Battle of Last Stand Station, which the humans named before we even arrived because they knew exactly how it would go and they were correct. Every fight the same pattern, overwhelming initial success followed by grinding, bloody resistance followed by escape and survival. We killed millions of them, entire colonies burned. And still they fought, still they adapted, still they came back. 5th month of the war, High Command started talking about negotiation. Unthinkable, but the numbers did not lie. We were winning every battle and losing the war. Our economy was collapsing under the weight of military expenditure. Our population was turning against continued conflict as casualty lists grew longer. Our military was stretched across 100 systems, trying to hold territory that the humans kept infiltrating and sabotaging. 9th month of the war, we sued for peace. The humans accepted, not because they were losing, because they had made their point. They did not want to conquer us, they just wanted us to leave them alone. They wanted us to understand what would happen if we ever tried this again. The treaty was signed aboard a neutral station. I was there, part of the diplomatic security detail. The human negotiator was a man named Fletcher. He had been a teacher before the war, taught children about Earth history and literature. During the war, he had killed 43 Korthian soldiers personally confirmed, probably more. Now he sat across from our delegation and smiled. This does not have to be adversarial, Fletcher said. We can trade, share information, even be friends, eventually. But you needed to learn something first. And what is that? Asked Ambassador Quelix, his voice bitter. That humans do not surrender. We do not give up. We do not quit. You can kill us. You can burn our worlds. You can do everything in your considerable power to destroy us. And we will survive anyway. We will adapt. We will find a way, because that is what humans do. We refuse to die when you tell us to. Remember that. The treaty terms were harsh. Reparations, territory concessions, technology sharing weighted heavily in humanity's favor. We signed anyway. What choice did we have? Continue the war and watch our empire bleed out. For what? Pride. The humans went home. We went home. The war was over, but I still think about Cooper, about Kelly, about Davis and Fletcher and the thousands of humans I watched fight and die and somehow win anyway. I think about how wrong we were, how completely, catastrophically wrong. We thought they were primitive. We thought they were weak. We thought we could break them. We forgot to check if they wanted to be broken. And when they said no, when they decided that dying was acceptable but surrender was not, we learned something that every species in the galaxy knows now, something that gets taught in every military academy from here to the galactic rim. Never fight a war of attrition with humans, because they will outlast you. They will adapt faster than you can adjust. They will turn every disadvantage into an advantage. They will refuse to acknowledge that they have lost until they have actually won. The war turned at Epsilon Ridge, not because of some brilliant tactical maneuver or technological breakthrough. It turned because one human, then another, then 2,000 of them looked at an overwhelming military force and said one simple word, no. And they meant it. They absolutely, completely, terrifyingly meant it. I teach at the Korthian Military Academy now. Every class I tell them about the humans. Not to frighten them, though it does, not to shame them, though perhaps it should. I tell them so they understand. War is not about weapons or numbers or technology. War is about will. And the humans have more will than any species I have ever encountered. They have an infinite capacity to look at impossible odds and say, so what? Watch this. Epsilon Ridge was supposed to take 4 hours. It cost us an empire. And somewhere out there, on some human colony, Cooper's children are learning the same lesson he tried to teach us in that interrogation chamber. They are learning that sometimes, refusing to quit is the most powerful weapon of all. They are learning to say no. And the galaxy is a very different place because of it. The funny thing, we are better for it too. The treaty forced reforms, made us question our assumptions, made us better neighbors, better allies. The humans could have demanded our surrender, our subjugation. They demanded partnership instead, but they made sure we knew. They made absolutely certain we understood. They could have destroyed us too. They were holding back. That is the part that keeps me awake sometimes. During the entire war, the humans were fighting with one hand tied behind their backs, pulling their punches, using primitive weapons and basic tactics because they did not want to escalate to total war. They were being gentle, and they still beat us. I met Fletcher again, years later at a diplomatic function. He remembered me. We shared drinks, something the humans call whiskey, which tastes like burning but in an interesting way. I asked him the question that had haunted me since the war ended. Would you really have fought until the last human died? Fletcher looked at me with those strange, forward-facing predator eyes that humans have. He smiled, but it was not entirely a friendly smile. Vrek'tal, he said quietly, we have been fighting until the last human dies since we first crawled out of caves and threw rocks at things that wanted to eat us. It is what we do. It is who we are. You are lucky you learned that lesson cheaply. Some species did not. Some species tried to exterminate us completely. Those species do not exist anymore. He said it casually. Matter of fact, like he was discussing weather patterns. You are joking, I said. Am I? He was not. The humans keep records, detailed records, of every species that tried to destroy them. Before us there were 3 others. Aggressive expansionist civilizations that saw humanity as a threat and decided to eliminate them preemptively. Those civilizations are extinct now. Not because humanity hunted them down, because humanity survived everything thrown at them and then, eventually, outcompeted them in every category that mattered, outlasted them, outbred them, out-innovated them, just quietly persisted until their enemies collapsed from exhaustion. We wanted peace with you, Fletcher continued. We still do, but do not mistake peace for weakness. Do not mistake mercy for inability. We let you walk away. Remember that. I do. Every day, every class, every briefing, the human refused to die. That is when the war turned. That is when everything changed, and the galaxy is still figuring out what that means. 3 years after the treaty. I thought I understood humans. I was wrong. Again. Apparently being wrong about humans is a permanent condition for anyone who is not human themselves. The second contact incident, as historians now call it, taught me exactly how wrong I could be. It started with the Vexillian Compact. Nasty piece of work, that alliance. 7 species. All predatory, all aggressive. All convinced that the galaxy belonged to whoever had the biggest guns. They had watched the human war with interest. They had studied our mistakes. They thought they could do better. They were impressively, catastrophically incorrect. The Vexillians did not waste time with half measures. No probing attacks on border colonies. No testing defenses. They went straight for Earth itself. 17 battle fleets. 200,000 ships. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. All converging on humanity's homeworld simultaneously. It should have worked. By every tactical analysis, every computer simulation, every reasonable military assessment, it should have ended humanity permanently. Cut off the head, the body dies. Standard doctrine. The Vexillians forgot to check if humanity considered Earth their head or just one appendage among many. I was on the Korthian observer ship Watchful Eye, positioned at the edge of the solar system with delegations from 40 other species. We were there to witness what everyone assumed would be humanity's extinction. Some species came to gather intelligence. Some came to pay respects. Some came to watch and learn what not to do. All of us stayed because we could not look away. The Vexillian fleets dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Beautiful. Actually. Synchronized down to the microsecond, they formed a sphere around Earth at optimal firing range. Every gun charged, every missile locked, every soldier ready. Then nothing happened. For exactly 5 minutes, the Vexillian commander, a creature named Thraxus, waited for humanity's surrender. Standard procedure. Give the enemy a chance to capitulate before commencing bombardment. Civilized warfare and all. The humans did not respond. No transmissions. No surrender. No counterattack. Just silence. Thraxus issued the order. 200,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. What happened next broke physics, broke tactics, and broke every assumption we held about human capabilities. Every single shot stopped. Not deflected. Not absorbed. Stopped. Frozen in space. Like someone had paused reality itself. Millions of plasma bolts, thousands of kinetic missiles, hundreds of antimatter warheads, all hanging motionless between the Vexillian fleet and Earth. Then they reversed course. Every weapon, every shot, every missile turned around and accelerated back toward the ships that fired them, faster than they had been launched. Exponentially faster. And they were no longer conventional weapons. The humans had modified them somehow in flight, turning plasma into something that burned hotter, kinetic rounds into relativistic kill vehicles, antimatter into something worse that I still do not have words for. The Vexillian fleet died in 17 seconds. 200,000 ships. Millions of crew. Gone. Just like that. In the observation lounge of the Watchful Eye, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. We just stared at the expanding debris field that had been, moments ago, the most powerful military force assembled in galactic history. Then the transmission came. On every frequency, every language, every possible form of communication. The voice belonged to someone named Admiral Park. Human, female, sounding remarkably calm for someone who had just vaporized an entire invasion force. To all observers, Park said, "Humanity thanks you for witnessing this demonstration. To the Vexillian Compact, or what remains of it, understand this is your only warning. Leave us alone. To everyone else, we apologize for the dramatic display. We would have preferred a peaceful resolution. The Vexillians chose otherwise. Questions will be answered at the diplomatic conference scheduled for next week. Earth remains open to peaceful contact. Aggressive contact will be met with appropriate response." Arc out. The transmission ended. Normal physics resumed. Earth continued spinning peacefully below, looking for all the galaxy like nothing important had happened. I found myself laughing. Couldn't help it. The sound came out wrong, more like choking than amusement, but it was definitely laughter. Humans. Actual humans. They had been holding back during our entire war, every battle, every engagement. They had been using primitive weapons and basic tactics because they were being polite. This was them being impolite. How? Ambassador Quelix whispered beside me. He had gone pale, which for a Korthian meant his skin had shifted to a sickly yellow. How is that possible? That technology, those capabilities, that level of control, they are human, I said, still laughing that broken laugh. Did we learn nothing? They do not follow the rules. They do not acknowledge limitations. They just do things that should be impossible and then act surprised when we are surprised. The diplomatic conference the following week was standing room only. Every species sent representatives. Even the surviving Vasilian territories sent someone. A junior diplomat who looked like she wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. Admiral Park stood at the podium, looking entirely too comfortable for someone who had committed genocide less than 7 days prior. Behind her, holographic displays showed technical specifications that made no sense. Energy matrices that violated thermodynamics. Weapon systems powered by principles physics claimed were impossible. Defensive networks that seemed to manipulate space-time itself. Before anyone asks, Park began, yes, we could have done this during the Korthian War. No, we chose not to. The Korthian Empire was aggressive, but not genocidal. They wanted conquest, not extinction. That aggression could be channeled, redirected, negotiated with, so we fought conventionally, and demonstrated that even conventionally, we could not be beaten. The Vexillians were different. They came for extinction, total annihilation. That required a different response. She paused, looking around the room. Her eyes were the same as Fletcher's had been. Predator eyes, forward-facing, designed for hunting. Humanity has a saying, Park continued, peace through superior firepower. We prefer peace. We genuinely do. But peace requires that everyone agrees violence is not an acceptable solution. When someone decides violence is their answer, we have to speak their language fluently enough to convince them otherwise. The Vasilians needed a very clear, very direct message. We provided it. You massacred them, someone shouted from the back. One of the Trellis delegates, species known for their pacifism. We eliminated a military threat that explicitly stated their intention to exterminate us. Park corrected. Notice we did not pursue their civilian populations. We did not bombard their homeworlds. We destroyed the fleets that attacked us, and nothing more. They had a choice. They made it. They suffered the consequences. We sleep fine at night. What about proportionality? The Trellis delegate pressed. What about mercy? Park's expression shifted. Not to anger. Something colder. Something that made the room temperature feel like it dropped several degrees. Let me tell you about human mercy, she said quietly. Human mercy is that we gave them 5 minutes to reconsider. Human mercy is that we killed them quickly instead of making them suffer. Human mercy is that we did not hunt down every Vasilian in the galaxy and make examples of them. Do not lecture us about mercy. We invented restraint. We have been practicing controlled violence since before your species discovered fire. You want to see what human warfare looks like without mercy. Study Earth history. Study what we did to ourselves before we reached the stars. Then come back and tell me we were not merciful to the Vexillians. Silence, heavy and uncomfortable. So what happens now? I asked, standing. Might as well make myself useful. What does humanity want? Rick's expression softened slightly, almost smiled. Same thing we wanted 3 years ago, Vrek'tal. Trade, cooperation, peaceful coexistence. We are not interested in empire. We have no desire to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to pursue our own development. In exchange, we are happy to share technology, resources, cultural exchange, all the benefits of interstellar civilization. But let this be the last time anyone tests our defenses. We have made our point. Twice. There will not be a third demonstration. The conference continued for 3 days. Technical discussions, treaty negotiations, the usual diplomatic dance, but the real conversation happened in the unofficial gatherings afterward, in bars and restaurants, in quiet corners where species who had never talked to each other suddenly found common ground. Everyone was scared, genuinely, deeply frightened of what humanity represented, but more than that, everyone was relieved. Because humanity could have conquered us all, could have used that impossible technology to carve out an empire that spanned the galaxy, could have enslaved, destroyed, or subjugated every other species, and they chose not to. That was somehow more terrifying than if they had been aggressive. It meant they had power beyond measurement and the restraint to not use it. It meant every interaction with humanity came with the knowledge that they were choosing to be peaceful, not forced into it. It meant saying no to a human was safe only because they allowed it to be safe. I spent the next year studying human history, real deep research, not tactical assessments or technology surveys, cultural analysis, psychology, philosophy, trying to understand what made them so fundamentally different from every other species. The answer was evolution, specifically where they evolved. Earth is a death world. Actual, literal death world. Gravity higher than galactic standard, atmosphere composition toxic to most species, weather patterns that regularly produce storms capable of leveling cities, predators evolved specifically to hunt other predators, diseases that make our worst plagues look like minor inconveniences. And humans evolved there. Not just survived, thrived. They are the apex predator of a planet designed to kill everything that lives there. Of course they are terrifying. Of course they refuse to die. Of course they adapt impossibly fast. They spent millions of years learning to survive in conditions that would exterminate most spacefaring species in hours. But here is the thing we all missed. The thing that makes humans truly unique. They are not just survivors. They are cooperative survivors. Pack hunters, social creatures who learned that working together made them stronger than anything else on their nightmare planet.
That is why they offered us peace.
That is why they held back, because cooperation is not a weakness in human psychology. It is their primary survival strategy. They want allies, not subjects. They want partners, not slaves. They want to build something together because that is what humans do. They build, create, cooperate, right up until you threaten them. Then they remember they are also very, very good at destroying things. I published my research. It got attention, got me invited to speak at academic conferences across the galaxy. Got me a position at the new Interspecies Relations Institute on the neutral station Harmony. Got me something I never expected. Human friends. Real ones. People like Commander Jessica Torres, who had fought on 3 different colony defenses during the war. Like Dr. Raymond Kim, xenobiologist who studied Korthian neural structure and published papers that revolutionized our understanding of our own biology. Like teenager named Maya, who wanted to be a diplomat and asked me approximately 6,000 questions about Korthian culture. They were just people. Frighteningly competent people with impossible capabilities. Yes, but people nonetheless. They laughed, cried, struggled with relationships, worried about their careers, told terrible jokes, got drunk and sang badly. They were normal, until they were not. 5 years after the Vexillian incident, the Shrike plague hit Korthian space. Biological weapon, origin unknown. Mortality rate 93%. No cure. Our medical science was helpless. We were looking at extinction within 2 years. The humans came, not with armies, with doctors, scientists, medical ships, research equipment. They descended on our plague-racked worlds like an invasion force armed with syringes and determination. "What are you doing?" I asked Torres when she showed up at the institute. She was not supposed to be there. She was supposed to be commanding a cruiser somewhere in human space. "Helping," Torres said simply. "Your people are dying. We have better medical technology. So we are helping." "Why? We went to war with you, killed millions of your people. Why help us?" Torres looked at me like I had asked why water was wet. "Because you need help, and we can provide it. Because that is what allies do. Because 5 years ago you chose peace over pride, and we respect that. Because we are human, and humans help. It is what we do. But the cost, the resources, the risk of your people getting infected, worth it." She said it without hesitation. Without doubt. Like spending billions in resources and risking human lives to save a former enemy was the most natural thing in the galaxy. The human medical teams worked for 18 months straight, synthesized a cure, manufactured billions of doses, distributed them across Korthian space, saved 4 billion lives. Then they left, refusing all payment, refusing territorial concessions, refusing anything except a simple thank you. That is when I finally understood. Truly deeply understood. Humans do not refuse to die because they are stubborn, though they are. They do not refuse to die because they are tough, though they are. They refuse to die because they are connected. To each other, to their allies, to anyone they decide is worth protecting. And once a human decides you are worth protecting, you are protected. Period. End of discussion. They fight to the last bullet and the last breath, not for conquest or glory or pride. They fight because someone they care about is threatened. And humans, bless their terrifying hearts, care about everyone. 10 years after the war, I attended the wedding of my friend Torres. She married a Korthian engineer named Zelthos. The ceremony incorporated both human and Korthian traditions. It was beautiful, chaotic, occasionally confusing, and absolutely perfect. At the reception, Fletcher found me. He was older now, gray in his hair, lines around his eyes, but the same forward-facing predator gaze, the same quiet intensity. "You were right, you know," I told him. "We were sharing that burning whiskey again. I had developed a taste for it. At that diplomatic function years ago, we were lucky. If you had wanted to, you could have destroyed us." "Yes," Fletcher agreed, "but then we would have lost something valuable. You. Your people, your perspective, your culture. The galaxy is richer with Korthians in it. Why would we eliminate that? Most species would. We are not most species." He smiled, raised his glass. "To survival, to cooperation, to refusing to die when the galaxy tells us to." I raised my glass, clinked it against his. "To humans, who turned the war not through violence but through sheer stubborn insistence on staying alive and making friends anyway. That is a terrible toast. It is accurate." Fletcher laughed. Real laughter, warm and genuine. Around us, humans and Korthians and a dozen other species mingled, talked, celebrated. The war was a decade past. The peace was holding. The galaxy was learning to work together because humans refused to die. And once they survived, they refused to let their allies die either. That is the thing about humans. The thing that every species eventually learns. They are not terrifying because they are violent. Lots of species are violent. They are terrifying because they are loyal, because they will fight to the last breath for people they have decided matter, because they have an infinite capacity to look at someone different, someone alien, someone who used to be an enemy, and say, "You are one of us now, we protect our own." And they mean it. They absolutely, completely, impossibly mean it. The war turned at Epsilon Ridge because one human said no and 2,000 others agreed. But the war was won in the years after, when humans looked at the galaxy that had tried to destroy them and said, "Do you need help? We are here for you." That is the real lesson. The one I teach now to students from 50 different species. The one that matters more than tactics or technology or military strength. Humans win not because they are the strongest. They win because they refuse to fight alone. They win because they turn enemies into allies, because they build coalitions, because they make people want to fight beside them rather than against them. And if you threaten them, if you threaten anyone they have decided to protect, you face not just humanity but everyone humanity has befriended, which these days is most of the galaxy. The Vasilians learned that too late. They saw an isolated species and thought they could eliminate it. They did not realize humanity had spent the years since the Korthian War building relationships, establishing trust, demonstrating that they were worth having as friends. When the Vasilians attacked Earth, 40 species mobilized fleets to assist, not because they were obligated, because they chose to, because humanity had earned that loyalty through actions, not words. The humans did not need the help. They eliminated the threat themselves, but the gesture mattered. It proved something important. Humanity had won more than a war. They had won the peace. I am old now. Watching Torres and Zelthos celebrate with their hybrid crew of humans and Korthians and others, watching Fletcher tell exaggerated stories to youngsters who were not born when the war happened, watching a galaxy that has learned to cooperate instead of conquer. And I think about Cooper, the first human prisoner, the one who smiled and told us we were losing before we knew it ourselves. He was right. We were losing from the moment we assumed humans would quit just because we wanted them to. Humanity's greatest weapon is not their impossible technology, or their death world evolution, or their stubborn refusal to acknowledge defeat. Their greatest weapon is that they look at the universe and see potential allies instead of inevitable enemies. They see possibilities for cooperation instead of competition. They see a galaxy worth fighting for instead of a galaxy worth conquering. That is why they win. That is why they will always win. Because humans do not fight to destroy, they fight to protect, and they protect everyone, even former enemies who tried to exterminate them. even species who do not deserve protection, even people they just met who might become friends. The human refused to die. That is when the war turned, but the human chose to help. That is when everything changed. I finish my whiskey. Watch the celebration. Smile at the beautiful, chaotic, impossible future humanity has built, and I am grateful, deeply, profoundly grateful, that we lost that war, that we learned that lesson, that we got to survive and become part of something better than empire. Thank you, humans, for refusing to die, for refusing to give up, for refusing to let anyone else die either. You terrifying, wonderful, impossibly stubborn creatures. The galaxy is better because you are in it. Even if you do make terrible whiskey,